All right. Welcome, everybody. Today we're going to be doing a live Q&A with the Dragon Key and exploring some of the information and topics and magic of this book and some of the different areas that there are to explore in it, which, as any of you that have actually gotten the book will know, there's quite a lot. There's a deep, deep, deep dive here to explore, and many layers of my personal journey and knowledge and wisdom to take in. And obviously there's a lot of questions that might come up in that process and in that journey of getting to know this world and my world and the background that I have. And one of the first things that I'd like to do is I'm just going to read for you guys a little bit of an excerpt of the special edition hardback that I finally got because my friend Lindsay sent me her copy because Amazon still hasn't gotten me my author copies yet. And to any of you out there who have been trying to buy this beautiful hardback edition and haven't been able to yet, I'm sorry about that. It's been an Amazon issue. They apparently have had some issues with printing and they had some glitch with the PDF, and so they had me recreate that PDF and resend it in. So that's done now, and hopefully it will be back up soon. But here for your enjoyment and your pleasure is a little excerpt. This is from chapter 9 of the Shihaley lifetime called Oath of the Galactic Guardians. The years that followed were not quite the peaceful respite that I had hoped. While the reptilian forces had pulled back from Shihalio, they still occupied what was left of our decimated water planet and seemed to be gathering strength by building tons of new ships and larger motherships, the giant half-dome ships becoming entirely spherical moons of their own, black, terrifying, dark moon stations. They were now spreading out to other planets and star systems, assaulting with intense force and legions of robot armies that decimated any unprepared populations. No one was prepared for this, perhaps besides those of us remaining from the draconian mines and those we rescued who had fought for their survival to join us in escape. We started to grow a little battalion on the strangest planet I had ever seen by the invitation of the galactic councils. After the ascension of our people into the galactic community, a large contingent of the Shihaley Jedi community had come to Carissa, a planet that had all but been swallowed in cities, a giant meeting ground for species from 1,000 worlds. We entered a massive council hall, a giant egg-shaped building where hundreds of us entered through a special series of tunnels and out into the center of the massive structure. Eyes looked down on us from beings on individuated balconies that were geometrically distributed around the entire space. Amadalish Shkala had sponsored our attendance, and so her voice boomed into the space as her thoughts and words were suddenly illuminated in vast holographic light fields throughout the center of the egg above us. It was like standing under a floating series of scenes in space-time as she told the story of our rescue party from the lava moon docking with her mothership and our time in recovery. She took care and illustrated only very specific moments as she showed that we had innovated a way to use these morphogenesis matter into body systems to generate the bodies of dragons, which the Draconians believed were their gods. She expressed some minor relief as she shared that the Draconians did not seem to know that some of them actually were dragons who had incarnated into our galaxy within the Arcturian experiments. The relief did not seem to spread through the room. I couldn't help but feel chills as she expressed Arcturian experiments with visual representations of the draconian world and its dark and terrifying structures, filled with a culture of battle and rage. The pain was visceral in the room. It was clear that this experiment gone wrong was deeply affecting so many worlds, introducing the emotion of fear into the very interconnected field held within these council chambers. The air felt thick with it, and my whole body felt deeply uncomfortable. Yet she carried on, showing how we liberated our own worlds and carried the keys to potentially liberating many others. She expressed poetic portraits of our people, an artist of both language and matter herself. And the way she saw us was remarkable. In her eyes, we were these extraordinarily powerful beings with the strength to face unspeakable odds, that our weapons and armor were crafted from the light of our souls, bound to integrity and honor, and that we trained for much of our lives to earn the right to defend and challenge each other, always for the good of all, while maintaining some level of the sacred codex of sovereignty for each individual. Her full attention was on us now, and I longed to meet her eyes and thought my wish was fulfilled as I felt a wave of her gaze touch my heart. She called upon us, singing our people's name in our way. Shiheli. A few of the leaders from Shihelio stepped forward, wearing the traditional Shiheli armor with its woven shoulder guards, flat shield plates, and golden horned helms that curved like a smooth dome over the top of the head, then flared out to protect the neck from angled strikes. Their family sigils shone in golden embroidery, and magical seals lined their waist belts and the scabbards of their curved blades. 2 male figures flanked a single female oracle, all bearing the mark of Solarians, guardians of honor. A guide on the large round platform ushered them to stand upon a big golden seal with a fantastically complex geometry upon it. The oracle looked around the whole room, and the 2 guardians stood with their backs to her, forming a triangle, with the oracle facing towards Amidalishkala, gazing directly at her. As she began to speak in a self-assured, proud, and wise tone, she directed her expressions towards all gathered. We, the Shiheli, are here by your grace. We owe you our honor. We owe you our lives. We are but a people of many paths, and not all will take the one we propose here today. Yet for those who do, we will revere them for ages to come, and we will support them with all that we have. We, leaders of the Solarian clan, propose that the Shiheli join your community among the stars and serve as galactic guardians. We offer our skills, our knowledge, and our abilities to protect your vast spectra of beings and life forms, and will train you to protect yourselves. We know what it means to lose a world. And as long as we live, we will give everything we have to ensure no other beings must experience this. She falters for a moment, the vivid illustrations of a dying world flickering above us. We, the Shiheli, who choose this path, she continues, as she looks around at all of us, do give our sacred oath to provide guardianship to this galactic community from now through all time. And so we do, and so we are. Every Shiheli in the room's voice booms after hers. And so we do, and so we are. Intakshi Hashe, Intakshi Hashen. And thus was the Galactic Guardian Oath established, and the Order of the Guardian Jedi was born. We would become the first interplanetary Guardian force, providing security, rescue, and defensive operations across so many planets that had left conflict and war behind long ago. It was like a garden of grace out there across these beautiful worlds, and they had no idea what was coming for them from across the vast reaches of the darkness of space. So our first task was education, both by accepting initiates from many worlds, misfits who would become initiates by the ways they stretched beyond the normal way of life in their home planet cultures. For the Shiheli, education was not about discussing all the horrible things that could happen to you, but rather by harnessing the innate gifts within you, building so much trust and resilience that you naturally overcome any obstacle thrown your way. Yet would it not be long before we would need to actively defend worlds and assault prisons, rescuing people captured from ships or planets in the sectors around Betelgeuse, and eventually into the vast expanse of the nebula, which looked like a great dragon's head, which happened to be near the home of this unimaginably populated planet, Carissa, in the Alanak star system. That's a little taste. Thank you for listening, and excuse me for being moved internally. It's always a lot to remember. And so I would love for any of you who have questions, who are on the Zoom with me, or if you're on Instagram, I can see them here too. If there's anything you would like to ask or share, questions about the book or the story, the journey, about past life recall, about any of the metaphysics or magic that I explore within the books, or even just questions about the books, if you haven't had a chance to really get into them yet. It would be my honor and my pleasure to answer questions for you and to show up for you here. And thank you all so much for being here with me. And I really appreciate it. Really love seeing you all. And thank you for your presence with me here today for this Q&A. Thank you. See you. Sophia?
Hi, I don't know where the raise your hand button is.
That's all right.
But thank you so much for writing this book. I have followed some of your courses on Zoom or elsewhere, and this journey for me is absolutely terrifying, even though I'm jumping on it voluntarily. And also just coming here tonight or to any of your other stuff, I'm almost paralyzed when it comes to the whole past life thing. And I have had experiences, and I do believe, but I'm still super, super scared at so many planes of existence. So
yeah,
I'm just gonna sit and listen and take in the energy and then take baby steps towards more clarity. But I'm really grateful that you're doing this and sharing this with us, because it's huge. So
well,
thank you.
it's a beautiful, beautiful share, and it has a question inherent in it, and that is, how do we face the fear of the pain that we've been through in the past? And the past can be really hard. It's like there's so much that we've gone through, there's so much that we've been through, and it's true of this life as much as any other. When you look back at some of the most challenging moments, it can be hard to even let ourselves take in the memory of those moments, because inside of it, all of a sudden it pulls us and it stirs up things, and it's got all the dynamics that might have been there in that time. We may feel the residual emotions of that for lifetimes. It's like striking a really strong bell, and some bells resonate not just through the months or the weeks around an event, but resonate through the years and or centuries and or lifetimes of our soul's journey. And what that means is that we as beings have the capacity to carry the beauty and the pain of everything that's happened. Without that resonance, we wouldn't be who we are. We're shaped and forged by that song that's created from these moments where we go through massive change and massive impact. And when you look at the deep, deep past and you begin to really excavate the journey of your soul through time, and you realize that you've been killed and you have killed people and you have gone through destruction and you have gone through Holocaust and you have maybe even lost your planet at some point. when you face that, it can be extraordinarily terrifying at first, because it may feel like that part of you is dying, that there's something in you that's so full of pain that it's not even clear why you would want to live and be incarnated. Why would you want to go through this? Why would you want to journey as a soul through these passages of such intense pain and transformation? And unfortunately, the avatars and the spiritual masters don't give an answer to that, because after all, even if your name was Yeshua, you still got nailed to a cross, right? It's not that an avatar or a perfect master eradicates suffering. Otherwise, he would have eradicated the Roman armies, assaults against the people back in those days. Meher Baba, there's a well-known story of Meher Baba being in a car accident. Told people that it was going to happen, but still chose the car accident. So why do we choose this? And when we start to look at our lives and we look at the pain and the suffering, and we look at the way that each one of these moments has forged us as a being, has forged our soul in a way to help us grow, to become more loving, to become more compassionate, to be able to hold space for more kinds of people and more kinds of situations, to actually fall in love with the fact that through the pain that we've gone through the life and the death, through the glory and the suffering, we have experienced more of what it means to be God, to be life, to be the universe. We are the universe exploring itself, discovering more of what's possible. And when we begin to see it that way, suddenly it's like there's a medicine inside of it. It takes the place of the pain that may be crushing and feel like you're under a mountain, and it starts to transmute that crushing weight into an alchemical fire that is fire and water and air and earth inside of you, that breathes and bleeds the fucking magic of the universe into space-time. It becomes our creative power. It becomes our wisdom. It becomes that which we stand by a sacred fire and share and speak, because it's so sacred to us. And it brings meaning to all of these things. Whereas so many days and so many moments of making your breakfast and making your coffee and doing your work and answering the emails, all of that just feels like pointless when you look at the power of these moments of our great change and our transformation. And it's the carrying of that song, that magical symphony inside of our souls, that opens the doors of our destiny. And as we excavate and accept the terrifying moments of our past and realize that it's okay to look at it, suddenly things will open up, and we will suddenly gain the capacities of those skills that we learned from those challenges in the past to give a greater gift now and going into the future. We begin to be carriers of songs of liberation for others. We become guardians. I see a couple other hands. So Mohini, but I believe there was one other here. Let's see. Who's got the hand raised? I'm trying to see.
Karen had her hand raised first, Adam.
Okay, great. Thanks. My little phone stand is for Instagram's messing up. Hold on, I'll plug it in while you come in.
So thank you, Adam, so much for being here. I can't wait to read your book. I have a dragon familiar who is when I first met him, I just wept because I was so touched by who he was. And he said he'd been assigned to me sort of as a protector. And even though I could tell he was young, and so I've had a fascination with dragons for a while. And I asked a friend of mine, I said, I know what I want for Christmas is this book by Adam Apollo. So what I'm wondering, when you just shared that excerpt from the book, when you're writing this, are you seeing pictures? Are you getting downloads? Do you know in your being that this is a memory?
Yeah, so you'll understand when you get into the book, because this first book is 3 parts. So the first part is me telling you the stories about how I had these memories. And so it's a skip through time where I'm taking you on moments in college and a crazy party where a guy gets drunk and starts calling me by my name from a past life, and also a woman that I'd been having dreams with and that we hadn't told anybody about because I'm dating her roommate in college, to moments in Golden Gate Park where I had massive flashbacks while working with a sword with a close friend of mine, to my travels with Indigenous elders doing the prayer runs for world peace and trying to kind of get out of all the past life memory stuff and just be here in my body and run with the prayer staff and do the now thing, and then find myself in San Francisco afterwards, and I'm just dancing at a party, and this woman sees me from across the way, and her mouth is hanging open just staring at me. And I kind of like finish dancing, I walk over to her to see what's going on. She was a friend of one of my friends from Asheville, and she starts spilling out all of this stuff about remembering me moving like that but on a battlefield, and I was doing a sword dance as I was dancing. And so I take you through these moments where a lot of them started as fragments where it was like I had a glimpse, I could see it, somebody shared something with me, or I had a simultaneous memory with someone else, and I found myself in another time, in another part of my lives. and then I would move on, and I would reflect on it and contemplate it. And then sometimes I'd have dreams that started to expand my memory, or I would meet somebody else and suddenly I'd have another pin in sometimes the same lifetime. And it took me years in some cases to figure out if this whole period of memory is the same life as this. And I had to get to know myself better, my clothes, the time periods. I had to do historical research to understand, if these things were paralleled. And then through doing that, I would have more memories come up and more memories come up until I could stitch together the entire flow of a whole period of my life. The galactic memories, of course, were even more challenging because there is no historical records. I found that many of the channeled books out there lack context horribly, and they often throw time frames out that don't have any validation. How do you know something happened 4 billion years ago, right? Like, how do you know it was 300 million years ago? Like, what did you use to gauge that? Because Earth's planetary system and our solar system has a different time framing than every other solar system. Our years of Earth are different from every other year that's out there. So how do you know these things? And I found myself kind of touching on and kind of opening different books and getting into different things. And I had to keep putting them aside and just come back to my own direct experience and my own memories, and to put together my path across lives with people that I know and that are beloveds of mine in my life.
I have had that experience of soul tribe, especially when you encounter those people that there's some kind of energy trigger, and things drop in, or memories, or a knowingness drops into to those moments. So the other curiosity that I have. And when my dragon showed up, I stumbled on you did a history about dragons at some point, and I was riveted. I was digging as far as I could go to find out, so what's the origin of dragons? How did they start and all of that stuff. So I was really grateful to find that. But since then, there's a lot of people that have connections to dragons. And I don't know if it's just this time, and it's like kids, a lot of kids, young people, and so what's that about? It's just really interesting. And we're going through so much obvious, massive planetary change and shift. Everybody sees that, knows that.
Yeah.
And so you do wonder, especially if you have a dragon in your life, like how are the dragons a part of that, or what role do they play, and all of that.
Yeah, well, I can't answer all those questions.
Yeah, that's just
but
what
I can. Yeah, no, it's because I don't know the origin of the dragons, to be honest. But in my book, my experience of the origin for me of being with the dragons was being in a non-incarnate form in this celestial realm where I was playing with creation. And I was playing with this one field of creation, and somehow a little window opens up to this being that was a dragon being. And I'd never experienced anything like it before. It was something completely different than anything my soul had experienced. And I was enraptured by the power and the depth, and it was terrifying, but also like ecstatic at the same time to like see this being and the codes that it held. And that's, I ended up kind of falling through that portal, and the next thing I know, I was cracking out of a dragon egg, which was quite a memory. Let me tell you, when I was a little kid, when I was coming out of that egg, going through this birthing process in the middle of a healing, which happened with a wonderful friend of mine named Caitlin in Marin in California. And as I'm like going through that healing, it was wild. Like, I mean, just the visceral experience of pushing out and seeing this egg cracking, and I'm pushing out into the sunlight and having these two heads that were my parents looking down at me.
Okay, perfect. Just let me know when you're available.
My heart exploding.
I'm good for the rest of the afternoon.
Somebody's not muted, and I'm trying to find you right now, but I can't. Hold on.
Oh, I'll make your call and then let's chat.
Yep, that's Marin. All right, there we go. Yeah, so it was absolutely amazing, and that was the first moment that I really got clarity that the dragon symbol and the way that dragons had woven throughout my entire life, from the first drawings I'd ever done, to all of these synchronicities throughout my life, that it wasn't just symbolic. It wasn't just, these are just symbols, like some archetype, from some mythology in the past, that like, I was a dragon. I was born as a dragon. I will never not be a dragon. I'm a fucking dragon. And that's just what's true and what's real. And that I've just been in these kinds of bodies for a really, really long time. And yet, no matter how many times I incarnate into these, little fleshy humanoids, the dragon's still there. It's always going to be there. And I've found more and more and more beings like me, tribe like me, soul family like me. And I think it's extraordinary to discover this part of yourself, because it's like finding the archangelic form inside of you, this high magical elemental powerfully integrative form, that's just not, it's just not like, there's not like anything else. There's nothing else like it. I mean, there's cats, there's dogs, there's horses, and then there's dragons. Like, yeah, and it's been profound for me to integrate the dragon in me more through my lives. And so my goal is to help others do that too. And I think we are in a time where the dragon energy, that thread of the archetypal stream from source is awakening, and those that have that in them are remembering. And we need dragons right now on Earth. We need the awakening of the dragon tribes to help take back and steward this planet for all life, because we're careening out of control on pathways that are leading to our own destruction. And when a world is in crisis like this, you need the dragons, because the dragons have the ability to integrate the vast dynamics between this side and that side, this polarity, that polarity, the Republicans and the Democrats, the Whigs and the whoever's, and the this race and that race, and all of the different things that we're facing. They require us to do alchemy, and dragons are the masters of alchemy.
Yeah. Oh, I 100% agree. As it turns out, I also live in Marin. So maybe
nice.
I'll run into your friend.
Nice.
And I look forward to reading your book. I'm really excited about it.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you. Such a pleasure to have you. Thanks for joining. All right. And Mohini, bring you in now.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's an honor to speak in this forum. I give my salutations and blessings to all here. I didn't know when you were going to read today that I was going to lose it. I was really feeling that story, and there was something about you reading it. But it was like the first time I met you, which was also a very interesting interaction. And I went to speak to you, and I burst out in tears. So
I remember. Thanks for being here again.
Yeah, well, I'm in agreement 100% with pretty much everything, to stand for all life. I live to that end. I study deeply the mind control systems that seek to commandeer free will and consciousness in this world in order to be a part of, first of all, liberating it myself from my own being, and then standing and making medicine of that to help liberate others.
Yes.
The creator told me there are no enemies, Mohini, only family. And that's a huge responsibility and courage to think about things like that. But it's the alchemy of bringing the enemy in, and also, just being very inspired to call forth forgiveness for lifetimes in order to be more purified, to serve better. Because to me, the becoming the best version of myself and to embrace alchemy and magic is only for the liberation of all souls.
Right.
The empowerment of one is nothing. It's always the empowerment of all. So I really thank you so much for the huge, I've been listening to you for a while and studying your works, but I really am grateful that you put it to the pen, brother. I really am grateful. I know that's a huge undertaking. I'm so grateful for that and all the works that you've done. And I just wanted to read this beautiful part of your book, because when I read this, I felt a sense of liberty between us.
Okay.
And it's in the dedication. It says, to all those who I have hurt along the way, I am sorry. Please forgive me. I am always listening, learning, and growing with the intent on being a better and more integral person. I also am this. If you hurt me, I forgive you. And I say, thank you, brother, for your forgiveness. I understand that so many of our wounds come from traumas in this life or others. If we have loved each other deeply and fully, even a single moment of expression, thank you. I thank you. Your love has made the whole journey as a soul more than worth it. If we lived together, died together, held our children together, or found solace in each other, it has truly been an honor. It has been an honor, and it will become an honor, and it will always be an honor. I know that this book is going to be an alchemy within my own life, and I'm grateful for that. It's the magic I've been looking for to help solidify the work that I have to do. And if you did not do this work, it's so quintessential because it's really a key point of awakening for a lot of people, and an empowerment through the purification of lifetimes. And we need, like you said, we need the dragon energy. We need the awakening. We need the purification. We need the courageous souls who can look at things that are hard to see and bring the shadow to light and alchemize it towards greater life for all.
Oh.
I thank you. Oh, and I guess my main question is, you know, was there a decision that made you decide to finally write these books and bring them forward? And what was that decision, and how did that unfold for you? And thank you very much. I'll take my stuff on mute.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lainey. And I just really appreciate it. And thank you for reading the dedication. Yeah, that was one of the last editions, and felt like one of the most important things for me to say from the whole series. So thank you. And thank you to all of you out there who are the souls that I've been on this journey with, and who have been on this path with me of coming back again and again to make the world a better place. My journey is worth it because of you. So thank you, all of you out there who are listening to this. There was definitely many junctures that pushed me to write this book. I have fragments of lifetimes written out, because as puzzle pieces came together and I saw and I experienced big healings, I did write it down. Sometimes I wrote it in poetry form. Sometimes I wrote it, like in the case of the Shihaley lifetime, I wrote the entire thing in one sitting, because I'd dreamed the exact same dream 3 nights in a row, and I had the entire memory 3 nights in a row. I think that for a long time, I thought that I was recording all of this for me, and that it was my own journal in a way. And I don't really journal very much, but this was a way for me to capture my own journey in my life. And I thought maybe I'd share it with my kids one day, or students or something. But yeah, there were then these junctures where I went through a lot of significant challenge, and in many ways, it's been building Core Nexus, which my team behind this planetary operating system I'm building, when we've toned into the soul, the kind of the energetic essence of the core of this project, my whole team, when we did this meditation, and there were like 8 of us on the team at the time, we all saw this giant blue sapphire dragon mother who was like wrapping the earth in her wings and holding the planet and guarding and protecting the life on this planet. And in the process of building Core Nexus and going through the years of refining the architecture and trying to explain a planetary operating system to investors who are used to, so it's a 144 character text app, right? Or, it's an app that helps you take pictures of plants. Like these are the kinds of projects that, are all funded by VCs every day, like funded by angels every day. They're one feature, it does one thing, it does that one thing better supposedly than other things do, and they get funding for it. And I'm trying to describe to them how our dashboard can let you take back all your social networks, create digital products with AI, automatically split royalties to your friends and donate to impact, and that money in those impact wallets then gets attached as bounties on real world missions. And that's about as short as I can say it. And already it's like, what? Wait, is it a mission system? Is it a learning system? Is it a social system? What is this thing? And so I had over the years these many times where occasionally I'd have a visionary investor show up, make a big offer to me, and 9 months later never give me any money, you know. And I had a lot of smaller investors who came in and helped us get along the way, but it was all piecemeal. So it was like I could get to the next little stage, I could get to the next little stage, I could keep the team on a little, you know, more fully or a little longer. And there was a few times where, you know, because of other deals falling through, like this one $2 million a year licensing deal I had for one piece of the tech that we've built, like one piece, and they lost their funder and things fell apart. And I found myself, you know, after having kind of hit this wall again and again and again, in deep prayer around like, well, what is it that I'm missing here? Like, what am I doing to create this experience? Like, why am I delaying this journey? And what is this about? What do I need to do in order to get across this line and to give this dragon to the people of the earth, like to bring this gift to the planet? What do I need to do? What do I need to look at? And there was a lot of things, but one of the biggest ones was that I got a very, very clear message from Goddess, and it was 100% a gigantic bell resonating in my being that just said, you can't just be a tech CEO. You'll never just be a tech CEO. You must be a teacher, and it's part of who you are. It's part of what you're here to do. It's part of what's baked into your soul. And so if you're not still teaching, if you're not still taking on students and writing classes or writing books and bringing your knowledge out there to the world, like you could get totally caught up in being the tech CEO and leading this technology development. And it's important and it's needed. But being a CEO means, you know, financials and operations and investor management and systems building and all of this other stuff. That's not me teaching. That's not me sharing these other gifts. And I started to realize really clearly that like the book was one of those biggest gifts. It was a giant well of wisdom and experience and a journey that had been my entire life, you know, since my first memories when, you know, even when I was a kid and I didn't even know they were memories, but the first times I really knew I was having a past life memory as a teenager, I realized that throughout my life, I've met people over and over and over again who have had glimpses of past lives. They've had moments where they knew they were from another time, or they knew they were from another planet, or they knew that one or another of these things was part of them. And they just couldn't look at it. They just put it aside. They just bypassed it because nobody gave them any permission to say it's okay to look at it. Nobody gave them a context that says you're a soul incarnating through time. And because I grew up in a Western culture, you know, I didn't grow up in Eastern culture where that's more normal. And for me, it's completely shaped my life, myself, who I am, the skills I carry, the magic I have, my confidence and what I do, and all the different things, my gifts have come from remembering myself. And so if I didn't give that gift to people, then I am not fulfilling my life work. I'm not fulfilling my life destiny. So that's what it was all about for me, Mohini. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, that's really beautiful. And you know, really creating a pathway to remember and to heal those things. I mean, it definitely is affecting me in a very personal and empowering way. And, you know, Jesus was one person and he affected a lot of people over time, you know, or Yeshua, as we also like to call him, and Gandhi or whoever. And so the more that we can liberate souls towards their own sovereignty and their authenticness as souls, as humans incarnate, however you want to state it, you know, the more empowered we are, because we're all connected, the more sovereign each person becomes, the more the collective becomes sovereign, and then we live in harmony with the Pachamama. So, that's my view of the importance of your sharing this very important information. It's going to activate a lot of people, bro. And I just, I think to myself as I hear you say this, I'm like, man, I think it's going to be a lot more than you even suspect. Like when you leave your body from this life and you're doing your life review and you see like how the tendrils of your book has affected everybody, like, oh man, I didn't even know. And I'll be like, yeah, bro, I knew the whole time. But anyways,
Thank you.
Thank you
Mohini.
so much.
So
Blessings,
good to see you.
and
Thank you.
much. You are and will continue to be very successful. I'll have every book. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and thank you for giving your beautiful young man a copy of the book as well. I really appreciate that. Blessed be. Excuse me 1 second. I have a little dragon in the room and she keeps scraping the door like crazy if you're hearing that sound. So 1 second. Come on. First, okay. This is one of my little my creatures. I love you. All right. All right. Hopefully that wasn't too crazy and annoying. Hearing her. All right, Silver Meredith. I see you're not on video. Do you want to just speak your question? Or you can come on video if you'd like.
Yeah, I can speak it. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm in the middle of feeding water buffalo, so I'm like running around with a headset on.
Okay.
So I had typed some of my questions because I, for whatever reason, couldn't find I'm technically averse, not challenged. I just don't like it. So couldn't find my hand raised, but I got it up. So you answered the first question, and thank you very much. Hold on. Is there anybody else with a question first? I got water buffalo chasing me. Give me 1 second. I'm going to walk away from the phone. Yeah, okay. Dude, it's a big story. Yeah, so I guardian a sanctuary. That's kind of where my duties have gone. Okay. In this world, it's a little different. So my question that you haven't answered, hey, come on, buddy, over here, is and if you can still hear me, yep. During this process, a lot of what you said has resonated with my memories. So there's kind of additional questions now. I have Celtic lineage, and I always thought the dragon lines came through the DNA vibration of my mother's line.
Yeah.
But I had a hatching as well during an energy healing session, and I was distinctly Asian. Mm-hmm. I could see myself in the shell, like an inside, when you can see the inside of your shell.
Yeah.
And you kind of are curled up. You're all curled up. I think you know what I'm talking about.
I do.
And I kind of went outside myself and looked at my form, and it was like distinctly Asian. And I have a deep connection to Japan. Mm-hmm. And I spent many years there. And so, all these things you said that I've read in other things you've put out, because I'm waiting for the illustrated version. So, yeah. Where do you think the the vibration, the dragon energy is coming through into the physical forms? Like, are we coming through genetic lines? Are we coming through energy vibrations? Or is it just random? Or what's your take on that? That was my first question. And the second one was, how does our duties and our oaths that we still carry deeply in us and kind of it plays out in our lives, how do you see that being affected by the ascension process? And especially right now, we're doing this huge violet flame purging, and we're releasing all these memories of trauma. And I remember, and I don't remember the names, but I definitely remember the attacks on the planet, the trauma, all that. If we're releasing that, how does that change our oaths, our duties, and our kind of conscious awareness of what we're and why we're doing it? Thank you.
Those are beautiful questions. Thank you so much. Thanks for showing up even in the middle of your water buffalo herding to be a part of this. It means a lot to me, and thank you. I'm really honored. So yes, first of all, is there specific genetic lines for dragons incarnating into, say, different human races, for example? From what you'll learn in the book is that when my tribe of dragons came to this galaxy, we were coming in response to having a whole other massive fleet of dragons that literally killed themselves to come here to take revenge on the humanoids because their family's DNA had been stolen. And souls from their families were incarnating in this galaxy. And to them, it just felt like someone had ripped away their family and stolen their family away. And those incarnations of those dragons is what we now, even today, and that people have soul memory of in some cases, describe as the reptilians. And I use that term on occasion in the books, but mostly draconians, because it's really dragon humanoid hybrid. That's what it really is. And those hybrids were made from various different species. And so dragon souls got into humanoid forms and into humanoid incarnations through the Arcturian experiments, taking that DNA and making, these draconian hybrids. And the other half of the dragons coming to humanoid form were tribes like mine and my families and other families around mine who felt that it was completely inappropriate to destroy lives in another galaxy who probably had no idea what they were doing when they took the blood of dragons. And so we ended up traveling to all of these different star systems and finding star systems whose energetic harmonics matched our codex inside. And interestingly, there's an elemental and energetic correlation between sort of soul vibration and the color of a dragon. And so when the dragon tribes were exploring these different star systems, we found that we could more easily incarnate into species that had a star with harmonics similar to our inner harmonic. And so we could incarnate into these different humanoid forms as long as we were compatible with the star that those planetary systems were orbiting. For those of you who are not maybe familiar with astrophysics and the nature of stars, every star has a different set of frequencies. And its age also determines that. Stars go through different progressions. They also have different combinations of elements, which cause them to burn at different colors and with different vibrations. So you can imagine that every star system out there in the galaxy is like a specific, you could think of it, the instruments tuned to a specific note in a certain area of notes. And so every star system has its own notes, and different souls are compatible with those different notes, those different frequencies. The song of the soul vibrates with that star system in compatibility or not, as you can imagine. And so on Earth, my next books will cover this. The book that I'm writing right now is called The Journey to Gaia Terra, and it's the Dragon Key book 2. And I'm going to be talking about the different peoples that came to incarnate on Earth, particularly in the prior to the last ice age, during the last ice age, and just after the Lesser Dryas period, after the massive flood and destruction on this planet happened, and how some of the rebuilding efforts happened. So that's the content of the next book. And I'll give you little hints and previews here, though, and say that, for example, the Celtic lineage, the Tuatha De Danann, are the people that we know of as sort of, if you go as far back into Celtic culture as possible, you get to these myths and legends about the Tuatha De Danann. And the Tuatha De Danann, in the original poetry written down about the Tuatha De Danann, it says that they arrived in the islands riding clouds, and they landed on the Iron Mountain, and they brought down with them from the Iron Mountain 4 sacred treasures from 3 islands in the sky. Sometimes they reference a 4th island as well. But there's at least 3 islands in the sky. And I don't know about you, but I've never seen an island in the sky besides the stars and the star systems that are out there, the islands in space. And the 4 sacred treasures of the Tuatha De Danann the way they're described sound exactly like galactic technologies. So you have the cauldron of the Dagda, for example, which is able to produce unlimited food and feed an army forever. That sounds like a replicator to me. You've got the stone of fall, which is said to be able to control weather. And you have similar descriptions of these spherical stones like this that end up being related to the Ark of the Covenant, related to some of the sacred sites in Peru and Bolivia, related to some of the things that we see in ancient Egyptian scriptures. And so it's likely that these arc stones, these power stones that can control weather and potentially also control fields and produce electricity in different ways, were a global phenomenon during a period prior to the end of the last ice age, where there was a lot of soul exchange and also knowledge exchange and other keys being brought to Earth and interconnecting with Earth from other star civilizations. And then, of course, you have, fun ones like, the Spear of Lug, which is said to never lose a battle, and the Sword of Light of Nuada, which was a sword that eventually disappeared from history and reemerged as Caliburn, and then disappeared again, and then it reemerges in the poetry and the Bristol Merlin about as Excalibur. And so these are obviously powerful keys, and I'm going to talk about some of these tools throughout the books as well, because they're part of my lineage, and they're part of my teaching and my gift back to the Irish people, because the Irish people don't remember who they are. The Irish people think that they're celebrating Ireland when they're celebrating St. Patrick's Day. And they've forgotten that St. Patrick's Day is the celebration of the destruction of their culture. And so we're in a time of, again, resurfacing these karmas to clear them and to heal them. And is there dragon tribe within the Celtic lineage? Oh yeah, you better believe it. And it's woven deeply through all of the ancient, Celtic knowledge and legends, all the way back to the times of the Tuatha De Danann. And there's keys and mysteries of the dragons hidden and woven into that. I love that you also brought up Japan. It's really fascinating because the Japanese culture is, and during especially the height of the samurai era, was as close as you could possibly get on this planet to the Shiheli culture. And I talk all about the Shiheli and the Galactic Guardians and the Oath of the Galactic Guardians that I read. That's the Shiheli. And the keys there is that the Shiheli species began integrating with humanity and incarnating into Asian areas a long, long time ago. And a lot of the most old Taoist wisdom and some of the most ancient artifacts that we have found inside of some of the oldest temples, some of the sanctuaries of high-level martial arts in the Himalayas, as well as some of the oldest references in Bhutan, as well as Tibet and these other areas, all reference dragons, flying vehicles, and advanced metaphysical techniques of the energy body to integrate with stars, to do clearings, to do astral travel, to do all of these skills, which essentially are part of a galactic codex of knowledge, including a lot of the roots of these martial arts traditions, which are all energetic. It's all about moving chi. It's all about learning how to harness the field. And I believe that the roots of that knowledge are not just based on this planet, which is why you have farmers go up to the top of mountains and then come back down as master martial artists, as you have in stories all over Japan. Well, where did they go? Did they just go to a temple? Okay, well, why did those temples have those skills? How did these high-level places have that knowledge? Where did it come from? How is it developed? We don't have any origin story for almost any of the roots of the most ancient and most powerful martial arts forms on the planet. And so I was able to, through my connection with the Shiheli, recognize that these have been teachings passed down through souls and across star systems, that the capacity of the body and the humanoid body to master movement and energy and element is something that is as ancient as humanoid life itself. And so, there's deep correlations there. And as you'll discover when you read the books, the Shiheli connection to the dragons is very deep and personal for me, because I was a dragon who could incarnate as a Shiheli. And I chose to do so because the Shiheli was the first closest world to the world where the hybrid draconian reptilians were being developed. And it was the first worlds that got assaulted when they developed star travel and began to travel across the galaxy. So a lot of the heat of the conflict of the Orion Wars, as well as the resolution of the Orion Wars and the healing of the galaxy, is all about this dynamic of the dragons, the Shiheli, and this relationship to the nature of who we truly are. And isn't it interesting and beautiful that, when you really step back and you start to look at these things, it was no original act of evil. The act was an experiment happening, and then you end up with dragon souls that get traumatized, and then they're playing out that trauma, and then you got other dragons trying to stop that trauma and heal that trauma. And when you really look at the big scope of things, you start to realize that all of these things, these acts that we call evil, and these beings that we might frame as evil, are usually just traumatized beings in one way or another. And the unfortunate thing about trauma is that when it's deep enough, we forget where it comes from. We forget why we're acting that way. We forget why we're acting out and regurgitating that trauma. And so this is truly an act of great healing and great consciousness, to come into greater acceptance of all life and all forms of life. And while all of that resolution doesn't happen in this book, I'll tell you, I can't resolve everything there. What I can do is help you understand where it comes from, so that you can do the resolution in yourself. And in the further works that are coming, you'll see more and more how this thread of the key of the dragon and this healing, this resolution of accepting who you are, accepting your divine nature, and accepting even if you've done horrible things in the past, and coming back into love with yourself and acceptance of yourself and healing with yourself, is the key to then having the level of acceptance, compassion, and grace necessary to heal a planet. So that's where we're going with all of it. And thank you again for the wonderful questions, Meredith. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks so much. All right. Let's see. Anybody else got a hand raised or have a question? I see of the group of you that are on Instagram. Do any of you have a question in here? Trying to scan back to see if anybody dropped one that I missed. Yeah, and big thanks to Alexis Fancher, who wrote me such an amazing testimonial from the book, in the way that it changed her life. And I put it on the back of the paperback, because it was such a beautiful, beautiful reflection and gift to receive that. And I got to kind of experience her reading the book as I was in the final editing. I gave her a copy, and so I was in the final editing process, and was having these conversations with her and receiving from her the just massive, processes and healing and transformation she was going through, and remembering her dragon self and remembering these different layers of herself. And it was such a gift, because it just nurtured me right through the process of doing the final steps of letting it go and letting it out, and easing my Virgo moon's perfectionism, because I want it to be perfect, so perfect, and eventually have to let it go. You have a work of art, you get it to as perfect as you can, and especially a book like this, it's not, this is not a small book. It's 500 pages and it's 120,000 words ish. So it's a lot. You got to go back, and you could go back and probably continue perfecting it over and over and over and over again, and just do the best you can. And those of you asking about the book, you can get it and read it and download it online at thedragonkey.com. So that's one way to do it. If you want the EPUB version for your Kindle or your phone, or to see the fully, media rich version, it's all in Pages Online that way. And otherwise you can order it on Amazon. And gosh, I hope the hardback comes back onto Amazon soon. I've been waiting for now over a week for them to fix their issues. So yeah. And yeah, if you want to join the Zoom sessions and be part of this group, and I'm going to be doing these Q&As at least once a month, you can do that through membership at thedragonkey.com, and come join us. And we do these fun Q&As. You get special access to certain things. I also am releasing the audiobook series, and it's in development. There will be a lot more of that done over the holidays as I just have more spaciousness. And so if you're a member on thedragonkey.com, some of those members get access to the early versions of the audiobook as I let it out too. I'm going to do it chapter by chapter by chapter. So you'll get to kind of jump in and have that experience if you want to do it that way. Yeah. And so, yeah, thedragonkey.com is where you can find the book. Jan, I see you have a question. Do you want to come on video or do you want to just speak?
No, I just want to speak.
Okay.
Sexuality is so prominent in this book.
Yeah.
And if you could speak a little bit more, I don't even know what my question is, but being on the spiritual path for many decades, it has not been, part of my spiritual journey. And I've even, there's a lot of spiritual teachers out there that, don't recommend it. And so reading your book, I was curious on how you said that you want to show it in more in its true light. So
yeah,
go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad you asked about that, because it's really an important question. And yeah, that was a big decision I had to make. It was a really big decision, considering whether to bring through the sexuality and the explicitness of it and the nature of it, or to leave it out of the book. And of course, my thoughts and desires to potentially leave it out were, thinking about, well, is this a book that little kids should read? Is this a book that should be read to children? And I had to make the call, because my soul was like, no, part of your codes and part of what you're here to do on the planet is to also help people understand and heal the trauma around sexuality. This is a big part of who I am, and it's something that's baked into my soul. And as you read the book, you'll understand why that is and why it plays such a major role for me across lifetimes. And I realized that I had an opportunity with this book that wasn't going to come in any other way, because as a tech CEO, I've got a sword blade to walk in my public appearance and how I do things in that world, right? And I also, as a teacher and as someone with schools and academies and all of these things, I have different layers where I have to work with who am I speaking to and who are my students and what is it that they really need. And I realized that for the most part, people that really come into the readiness to do the deep transformational work around, perhaps surviving the Orion Wars and going through that kind of stuff, of stepping into guardianship and what that truly means on the planet, that usually these kinds of transitions are happening as someone's entering an adult period in their life. They're at least, high school age or beyond. And that's a critical period to own conflict and understand conflict, to own guardianship, and most importantly, I would say, to own and understand our sexuality. We live on a planet and in a time, in a culture where sexuality is demonized. We go into spiritual traditions and we see that most of them have seemed to form a way that the ascetic path and the path of liberation from things means detachment from all things, which means detachment from everybody, which means just detachment from everything except for you, and then essentially release of everything to get to God, right? To get to the divine. And I look at that as the masculine path. The masculine path is the path of renunciation. It's coming to the end. It's being the sword. It's piercing the veil. It's relinquishing all of the attachments to come into the truth of the self as the infinite, eternal essence of all that is. So by letting go of everything in the masculine path, you realize you are everything, right? Because what you're doing is you're actually getting rid of all the things to be no thing. And once you have allowed yourself to let go of all the things and become no thing, then you realize you're everything. And that's beautiful, but it also carries with it many pitfalls along the road of the metaphysical development path. Because you may realize you're everything and come back and then think, well, that must mean I must be Yeshua, I must be Jesus, I must be Buddha. And then you go around and you start trying to convince everybody that you're the Messiah. And I mean, I know a lot of people that have fallen into that pit. And unfortunately, one of them who I had a great deal of challenge and conflict with, because I tried to help him to understand that he couldn't go around just trying to convince everybody he's the Messiah. And he fought me tooth and nail about it until eventually he took his own life. And it was really sad to watch, because I watched him struggle for years with the inner spiritual fire of the realization of being God, and also the great and intense difficulty of walking the path as God, and the realization that he's not in God's state. He's being a total jerk, he's not in his divine state. And so I watched this happen, and I've seen it happen many times throughout my life. And I got lucky enough to go through a short window of Messiah complex when I was in college, and it was very quickly healed and transformed by playing chess with a brother of mine, where I was playing chess with him, and all of a sudden I was in the state of seeing and experiencing myself as God, but then suddenly I experienced him as God, because the way he was playing chess was so freaking genius. It was it was beyond anything I could conceive of. And it was like God experiencing the mystery of God, reflecting as God. And it was just fabulous, fantastic. So I share all of that because the other side of this pathway is what I would call the feminine path. And the feminine path is actually baked into the roots of Bhutanese tradition and Tibetan tradition, and going back into the heart of Buddhism, into the heart of Tantra and all of the traditions of many of the different Eastern origin roots. You go into the Kabbalic mysteries, you go into the Egyptian mysteries, you go into all of these things, and even at the heart of the Christian mysteries, there's something major that's been left out or extracted out. And when you start wondering what that is, and you start picking at what that is, it turns out it's the divine feminine. The divine feminine has been there and is part of it the whole time. It's a critical piece of it. And the divine feminine pathway is about understanding that everything is God. It's all God. It's all goddess. It's all God essence. And that means that, your cup, your headphones, your computer, the device, the thing, all of that is God. All of that is sacred. And the path of the divine feminine is learning how to realize that and alchemize that and actually fall in love with everything. And you better believe sexuality is a huge part of that path. And guess what? It's also part of the masculine path. Because if you're in a male body and you have sex, you got to learn how to go to nothing and hold enough space for the massive power of the feminine Shakti to come through as it's birthing the freaking universe. Otherwise, you're going to lose it, right? Every man knows this. You have to find the silence. You have to find the space. Well, hopefully the men know this. Otherwise, if you don't know this, you're probably having a lot of really unfortunate sexual experiences because you don't create enough energetic space for that feminine Shakti to move. And if you don't create that space, then it's going to overwhelm you. You can't be the rock, you can't be a sword, you can't be a pillar as long as you're being overwhelmed by that field of the feminine. And so you need that space. And on the other hand, the feminine aspects of it is about the pleasure. It's about the connection. It's about the feeling. Through pleasure and through the connection and through love and through sex, we have one of the easiest access points to going into divine states of consciousness. If you appropriately leverage your orgasmic power, you will experience God every time you have an orgasm. Now, that's an interesting thing to think about, isn't it? Because we're in a world where it's like, well, how do I experience God? How do I experience the sacred? How do I get to the divine states of being? And it's like, well, you have to go to the mountain and sit and meditate and eat 1 grain of rice for the next 10 years and relinquish all of your attachments and do all this stuff and blah, 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 blah. 30 years later, you still haven't experienced God. I've met monks that did that. I was a monk that almost did that. And then I, learned my lesson, and I'll tell you about that in a later book in the series. And essentially it's like, well, what's the real point if I can go into a sacred chamber, with a sexual partner and access that state within the next 20 minutes? And I can not only access the state, I can hold the state, and I can go even higher into higher and higher tantric states. And I'm not doing it alone. So I'm not just alone thinking I'm God. I'm doing it in partnership and in connection that's creating a dynamic that's awakening me to what God actually is, which is this divine expression of all of these archetypes and all of these forms and all of the nature of being itself. And I get to experience someone else in that ecstatic union with me at the same time. And that is tremendously beautiful. And it's astounding to me that we've forgotten the sacredness of that path as a planet. We've forgotten that. That was part of the temples of Atlantis. That was part of the temples of Egypt. That was part of the temples of the Celts. It's been baked in at these underlying things. And now we call all of that occult knowledge, hidden knowledge. Why is it hidden? Who hid it? And what did they do it for? Because if you could have sex and make it rain, well, that's freaking powerful. You got a drought? Have some sex and make it rain. Nobody's doing that anymore. But we did it back in the day. We did it all the time. We need more abundance of the seeds. Boom. Beltane. We can make such tremendous magic with our sexuality, and we've lost that awareness. It's so sacred. And in fact, the idea that you can take a spiritual path without integrating that, I believe, is probably the biggest disinformation that we've ever gotten. Because if you are going to have a baby, guess how you're going to do it? If you're going to create life, you create life, your body, making more humans. How is that going to happen? You're going to have sex. And so what? We believe that we can repress that. We have to shut it down. We have to pretend that energy is not there. No, that life force is critical. And so then it's like, well, then, what if it gets out of hand and you got too much sexual energy? Dude, look at how powerful sexual energy is. Look at it. Look at what's going on in the world. Look at how sex, drugs, rock and roll. Look at the freaking field of how sexuality draws attention, awareness, consciousness moves with sexuality. And right now, we're all just oppressing ourselves at the same time. So it's like, oh, I like seeing sexual things. Oh, but it's bad. Oh, but I like it. Oh, but it's bad. Oh, but I shouldn't because, oh no, right? There's this this inner conflict that we're in. And because of that repression and because of that conflict, yes, there are all kinds of massively inappropriate ways that sexuality is getting expressed in the world that are not sacred, that have lost the sense of the sacredness that is inherent to it. I would say it that way. And that we need to reconnect to that sacredness. We need to re-own that sacred power. And, you know, gosh, I still to this day, I meet women who have never had an orgasm in their lives. I mean, that's a crime. That tells us something is seriously wrong with our society. The most powerful surge of energy in the body, the most natural rising force that we can use to create with, like that we can use to experience bliss, that we can use to comfort ourselves, to give ourselves ease, to feel a level of safety with others, to go into levels of intimacy and connection that don't happen through conversations, that don't happen through other kinds of interaction, the level of love that can be cultivated through loving each other, through orgasmic states of bliss and the witnessing of each other in ecstatic union. Why? Why would we ever deny this of ourselves? Say, Jen, I see you coming back in. So yeah, I'll let you unmute. Go ahead. Thanks for receiving my rant, everyone.
Well, I love your passion about all this. It's basically up for me because of my relationship with my boyfriend. And, you know, as you're talking, it's like, yeah, I'm the one that just wants to shut it down and be spiritual and not go there because, you know, I don't really know the because except the teachings probably of the masculine path. Being a female going on a masculine path of enlightenment, it doesn't lead us, you know, into the whole path of the male female thing. So anyway, what I was going to suggest though is if this seems to be up for people now.
Yeah.
And if you could take a week off of your agenda and just write a handbook or something to give us a clue, because as you're talking, I want to cry. And I don't know how to approach that because my mental spiritual body is so strong for it to give up its path and accept something else is pretty scary. So I suggest, you know, just for the fun of it, maybe put these ideas in a manual. I don't know if that's the right word, but you know what I mean.
I do. Yeah. Thank you. It's interesting because someone asked me almost exactly the same thing last night. So I'm going to receive that as a very clear message from the divine flow of my existence. And that sounds great. I think I will do that. I also have a course in the Guardian Alliance, which is at guardian.is, that's called Divine Sex. And Divine Sex is the most explicit, full on, clear, deep dive into sexuality of anything that I've released. And if you want to check it out and just kind of feel into it, there's a video on YouTube that's the intro video to the course. And so that's free and open on YouTube and you can watch it. Just go to my Adam Apollo YouTube /@AdamApollo. And and then look for the intro to the Divine Sex course. And it covers some of what I just talked about, and in more depth, because obviously I'm, coming to the end of this Q&A, and I just want to give you some seeds in answer to your question. But I want to invite you to consider for a moment that you're not going to leave your spiritual path by integrating sexuality. We need to look and take the pathways that we're on as guiding posts, right? And every pathway has different guidance posts for us. And there's plenty of really good guidance posts that the masculine path gives us. We're in a world with a lot of mental buzz. And one of the most powerful things about the masculine path is finding the stillness. It's finding the clarity and the stillness and ascending above the mix of all the stuff that's going on, so as you can see more clearly. But the reality is that no matter how much you keep ascending, you're eventually going to realize you're God and have the full experience of that. And then you're going to go back into the world. You're going to go cook dinner. You're going to go make stuff for your kids. You're going to do things in life, which you must descend into the world to do. And so the descending path and mastering that return to your interaction with existence is absolutely critical for all of us. And it's a piece that unfortunately many of these traditions have left out. It's like the idea that you're actually going to just sit and just be in meditation for 8 hours a day for the next 20 years is not going to work. It's not going to work. So how do you take these divine realizations and bring them down into your life and integrate that into your living experience? And neither one of the paths, I'm not saying either way of the path is easy, but they both require us to embrace things at a level deeper than we've ever done, because being with your divine nature is a matter of acceptance. You already are that, but can you accept it? Can you actually embrace it? And embracing the infinite nature of yourself and the stillness, in some ways, I would say, is a little easier. I mean, I've had an easier time with that than embracing that divine perfection in the world. Because embracing it in the world means embracing the fact that there's rapes happening right now. And why are those rapes happening? Because of our distortions around sexuality, because of this repression. And that, little kids, babies right now are having the foreskin of their penis chopped off without their choice. And what is that doing? It's breaking the frenulum, and it's removing the skin that actually protects that penis growing up, keeping it from overstimulation, allowing that person to have high level of sensation all the way into their later adult era, which is one of the major reasons, because of that massive loss of sensation from all the people, all the men who have been circumcised. Guess what happens? You get all these erectile dysfunction issues later on in life because of all the loss of sensitivity. And by the way, without that frenulum and without that skin there, rape becomes a very easy thing to do. Whereas an uncircumcised man, it's funny that we have to define uncircumcised men as uncircumcised. It's like, no, it's just the natural way that the penis is made, right? Like that this experience for uncircumcised men, you can't just get hard really fast and shove your member into a woman. It won't work, because as soon as that skin is pulled back really hard, it hurts and it will tear the frenulum. Uncircumcised men have literally a physiological piece of their body that's built in as a rape prevention mechanism. And that's why, if you look at the actual numbers and if you start looking, and it's been hard to dig at this data, but as far as I can tell, it's something like 90 to 95% of all rapes are with circumcised men. And this is the reason why. So we're dealing with some of the most critical stuff here. I mean, this is the real issues that we're dealing with on the planet. And sexuality is at the juncture. It's at the heart of all of it. And we need to look at it. We need to open it up. We need to deal with it, because when we make sexuality part of our spiritual path, you will see it will start to affect and transform all kinds of aspects of your life. It will heal things you didn't even know needed healing. You will restore parts of yourself that you know need to be restored. And it'll also bring you into consciousness of things that might be hard to be conscious of, but it's also part of accepting yourself as the sacred, part of the journey of realizing who we really are and being who we really are in service to the next generations of our children. Because I can't be here and leave this planet with the way that this steamroller has gone, the damage that's being done to the kids right now in such a level that's so hard for me. And so I'm conscious of it, and I'm taking responsibility. So anything I can do to support you all in your journey in that, I will. And this book absolutely will support you in that journey, because it will show you things about moments in sexuality that maybe you never even let yourself have, that you can actually go to certain states when you let yourself go there, when you allow yourself to surrender into the beauty of those moments. You can open up and unlock entirely new fields of awareness and experience. And I think that that's worthwhile for us to look at and to understand and to explore. And you don't have to leave any other path behind to do it. Because after all, as you said, you know, you have a boyfriend who wants it right now. So like, when's the best time to start your practice? Today. And I promise it won't be that bad, you know, hopefully. It's probably not going to be anywhere near as hard as fasting or something. So yeah. So I'm going to wrap up here in a few minutes. I'll just address a couple little things. Thank you all on Instagram for joining me for this session. Sonora says, what's your advice for those of us who feel deeply like we are supposed to be doing something very important right now to help humanity, but have no idea what that might be? So yeah, that's the thing, right? Finding the inner path of purpose. And it's most of the reason that I built the Guardian Alliance Academy, is to try to help give people a sense of the different soul songs that we sing and how to tap into those and how to move into those. So that academy is a good place to find some info about that. But I'll also just say that for me, by looking at and understanding the longer now, as James Redfield would call it, to understand my path through my life, and also begin to see my pathway across lifetimes, that by understanding my journey, I have gotten so much clearer about what it is I'm here to do and how I can do it. Because it's all really knowing the self. And you'll know the hints are there all along the way. Just like, for example, she's like, you need to write a little handbook on, you know, on sexuality and spirituality. Beautiful. Like, but that just as one piece of data, if it was by itself, it wouldn't mean much, except that it's connected to this piece and this piece and this piece and last night and the day before. And there's a line of things that's guiding me toward the thing that I need to do next. And when you're in really deep, open, receptive listening, you can find those pathways more easily, because you're willing to accept and attend to what has happened in the past. Now, this also means sometimes you got to go through and actually do a life review. Don't wait till you're dead. Spend some time reflecting on everything that's happened to you in your life. Look at the meaning, write it down, explore. Why did you go through this? Why did you go through that? Why did you have the manipulative stepmom? Why did you have the abusive stepdad? Why did you have this experience or that experience, or this bad sexual experience in high school, or this thing or that? Like, look at the chain of events, and the more you see what's happened to you and you accept what's happened to you throughout your life, the clearer and more precise your vision and your awareness of what you can do and how you can help the world will come. Because your own shadow experiences, your own challenges are the things that cook your gifts. That's what actually bakes the gifts inside of you that can make the greatest change. And yeah, you know, there was a little mention of of oaths in an earlier question that I didn't address, and I'm just remembering that. And Jenna Marie on Instagram is talking about vows of celibacy and chastity and things that may be part of past life blocks. Yes, oaths you have made in the past may still be affecting you in this lifetime. You better believe it. And, you know, the moment when you're getting killed and you're like, oh, I'll never do X again, you know, that can be a promise that you're trying to make to yourself that becomes outdated. So remember that you may have made oaths, you may have made codes, you may have made choices, and they were choices. And at any moment, you can change those choices. You can release yourself from those oaths. And I think it's pretty hard to find a lot of those. I've found many over the years that I didn't know that I had. And working with theta healing practitioners is my favorite. Theta healers are really good at accessing and finding old oaths and old binds, old vows that we need to release now, and getting in there and clearing them. You can also do it with QHHT practitioners. There's also other kinds of past life practitioners that do that kind of work, but theta healing has been my favorite pathway of getting in touch with those things and clearing and removing them. And then also other vows, coming into awareness of them, like the oaths of the Galactic Guardians that I made when I was Shiheli, that still stand for me. In fact, it's a part of my soul. It's part of who I've been in all of my lives. And I don't want to get rid of that oath. Because as a soul, I want to protect all life in this galaxy. That's what I want. I want to support the awakening and enlightenment and empowerment of all beings of all kinds across all worlds. And that's something that I won't drop. And that I'm going to keep that as my oath until I don't feel like I need it anymore. And it's not like it forces me to do anything except for stand in my truth and my ethics and my it gives me a foundation through which I can stand and know that I have purpose, that I get to be in service to all life for all time. And wow, what a glorious thing is that. So thank you guys so much. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate your presence. Haley, good to see you. I see you in there. Yeah, aloha. And thank you all for your time and for your attention and for your love and for your great questions. It's really, really been beautiful for me. I'm so thankful to do this. And I'll try every couple months to do a public one like this too, just because I really enjoy it. But if you want to be part of these Q&A sessions and dive in deeper on these topics with me, come join at thedragonkey.com. I'm also cooking up a course called Awaken the Dragon. It's going to be a 10-week deep dive into these topics. So we're going to go straight into all the real super juicy stuff throughout this whole book series. And there's a lot of magic in that. And there's a lot of things I want to share that I didn't get to share entirely in the book, that I won't be able to share entirely through things like Q&As, because I know the questions that you're not asking. And I'm aware of where those edges are. So I'm going to just pop it in the chat. And I think I actually already added the link at thedragonkey.com. But if it's not there yet, I will do a post on it on Instagram. Oops, that's not to everybody. I'll do a post on it on Instagram sometime probably over the weekend, and make a little solstice announcement of that. And blessed solstice to all of you. Blessed shortest day of the year up here in the Western or in the Northern Hemisphere. And it's a pleasure to be on this spinning, beautiful planet, hurtling around the sun with you in this galaxy. So thanks for being souls on this path with me. And I love you. Aloha keakua. Blessed be in Lakesh. Talk to you soon.